All right. Can I retire at 51 with $875,000 saved for retirement? That's what we're going to look at today on the Your Financial EKG YouTube channel. And I have a really interesting scenario for you. So hang on to your hats. I have a gentleman. His name is Dylan. He's 51. He's got $875,000 saved for retirement. We went through an EKG together, and he knows that he can't retire at 51 with $875,000. But what he wants to do is to leave his high stress job, his high pressure, his work all day job, and he wants to use his side hustle to bridge the gap between age 51 and Social Security. So that's what we're going to get into today in the scenario. Can I semi-retire at 51 with $875,000 saved for retirement? Hey, thank you so much for coming to the live stream. Let's get into this right now. So here we go. We've got Dylan. Dylan is 51 years old, and we're going to call him self-employed. Even though he is currently employed, we're going to call him self-employed because that's exactly what he wants to do. He wants to become self-employed. Dylan wants to use his side hustle. He wants to use his talents and abilities that God has given him, and he wants to use that for income. Because we had a conversation the other day, and Dylan was working at a job. They're doing some kind of project, and it was like 9 o'clock at night, and he was getting calls from his boss, and he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. So we are structuring an EKG. We're structuring a plan to get Dylan out of the high pressure job, move him in a direction of retirement. But in that bridge, in that interim, we realize that we've got to make some income from when we stop making a bunch of money to when we're just kind of covering our expenses with our side hustle. And then what does that do to our retirement investments, how we structure those withdrawals, and all of that. Okay, so we're self-employed. Our projected retirement date is 3 of 2034. So that's age 62. So we're not saying that he's not retired. What we're trying to do is semi-retire. We're trying to enjoy the abilities that we have. Can we make money from some of our hobbies? And that bridges us to Social Security. So what we're going to do in the scenario is we're essentially going to say the hobbies stop at 62. The side hustle stops at 62. Now, Dylan is a musician. And as a musician, he can play music until he can't play music anymore. I don't know how many emails I get. My wife is a classic rock fanatic. She grew up, her mom, classic rock fanatic. I have concert t-shirts, which are probably worth some money, from the 1980s, right? Like the original John Bon Jovi t-shirts from tours. So we get a lot of emails about guys coming through here in the Tampa Bay area. The Eagles are putting on a concert. I don't know if it's all the original Eagles or not, but you can be a musician as long as you can sing, right? So Dylan is a musician, and what we want to do is, can he do his musical career, which right now he just does on the weekends? Can we take that full time and get him out of his high stress job? So that's why we're saying age 62 is when we're projecting that like the music stuff's going to stop. Not that it will, but that's what we want in our projections. Now, Dylan's primary, when he takes Social Security, we're going to look at taking his primary Social Security benefit at 67. So his Social Security benefit would be $2,906 at 67. That's his full retirement age. Now, keep in mind, not add a benefit. Keep in mind that if you take benefits at 62, you're only going to get 70% of your full retirement benefit, or a 30% reduction. So you can see that in the software. At age 67, his full retirement benefit is $2,906. And these are reduced benefits. If we take it 66, 65, 64, 63, or 62, and these are increased benefits, 68, 69, and 70. If you make it to 70, if you're an overachiever, if you're a broccoli eater, you're going to get 124% of your full retirement benefit. Now, what we can do in the projections as we're going through this, and we don't have enough time to do that today because I try to keep these live streams to an hour or less, But we can look at, as we go on and we're looking through the years, I could say, okay, Dylan, what if we took Social Security at 62? Or what if we took Social Security at 70 or 64? And it's also something that we can look at by saying, where's the market at the time we get close to Social Security? I just got off a conference call with a gentleman. He just became a client. We were going through some of his scenarios, and he's 54, and we're trying to make this decision on, like, when do we want to take Social Security? And I said, hey, this is not something we have to set in stone today. Obviously, your assets are going to have some growth on them over the next 5, 10, 15 years. And so we might get to 62 and your assets have grown more than we're projecting. And so we're going to delay Social Security. Or we get to 62, 63 years old, and because of market loss, sequence of return risk, whatever, our assets are not where we want them. And maybe we got to take Social Security early because we don't want to take money out of our retirement income or our retirement assets. We need those to keep building up. And so there's a lot of different scenarios when it comes to claiming Social Security, but we just want to have in stone an idea of when we're going to do that. Okay, let me look at the comments for a second here. Kevin, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Fast Eddie, as always, appreciate you being here. First shot, guess it all comes down to expenses. It does. It comes down to expenses when you're looking at when to claim Social Security and those kind of things. It's getting hot in Texas. Oh, gets too hot in Texas, Kevin says. Well, it's about mid-70s here right now, so we're happy about that. Okay, no pension benefits for Dylan. Okay, so we don't have any pensions. Now, Dylan is single, so we are relying on me, myself, and I when it comes to his retirement income. So let's go to assets. Now, here's where our $877,000 is. So we've got $877,904. Now, the one thing that you can see that Dylan has done that is key if you're wanting to retire early. Now, let me say this. If you are wanting to retire early, if you're wanting to retire at 55, if you're wanting to retire at 50, this is one of the keys to retiring early. You see how he's got red, dark green, not so dark green, and then really dark green. All right. So that is how his money is classified by taxes. The red means stop. Wait a minute, right? Stop. That's qualified money. That means IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, any money that's going to have taxes when you pull that money out. Okay, like dollar for dollar taxes, tax deferred money. This, I guess, middle shade green is non-qualified. And basically what non-qualified is, that's money that's in your bank. That's money that's in a brokerage account. That's money that's not IRA, not Roth IRA, not 403b, not 401k, anything that is not tax deferred. Okay. The reason this plan is going to work so well, and I'm going to show you this, the reason this plan is going to work so well is because Dylan has been diligent about building up a bucket of money that is outside of his 401k, 403b, IRA, and Roth IRAs. And if you want to retire early, the key is to building up a bucket of money that you can pull from at any time. We call that freedom money. The freedom to do whatever you want when you want to do it. You can have the freedom to leave your crappy job at 51, and you can use that bucket of money plus a side hustle, which we're going to do for Dylan, and you can not have to touch your other assets till you're over the age of 59 and a half, which is right where you want to be if you're going to touch IRAs and things like that. Because what I don't want to do, if you retire before your age 55, well, you lose the rule of 55. And we don't want to do a 72T for that long. I don't prefer that in my practice. And now you might do something different in your world. But for me, I don't want to do a 72T for 9 years. So if we have this bucket of money that is able to be used at any time, that's going to give us our freedom. Now, he's got 12% in banks. So he's got another big chunk of money in the bank, and he's got a little bit of Roth. So we've got a lot of good money to work with here to retire early. And you can see how that's classified. We've got $394,000 in non-qualified money, $16,000 into a Roth IRA, which he's putting $500 a month in, $1,100 in a traditional IRA. We've got some cash value and some life insurance. We've got bank account money right there. And then here's our current 401k. Now, what we're showing is not putting any money into the 401k as a contribution. Now, he's currently contributing to his 401k, but we're not going to show that at this point, okay? Because we're actually trying to show, can I retire at 51 or can I semi-retire at 51 with $875,000? Now, we have a primary residence of $660,000. Now, what you'll see is there's an attached rental. So we already have a benefit because we have an attached rental to our unit. So Dylan has the ability to Airbnb, Vrbo, long-term rent a attached rental, which that income is coming in. Now he still has a mortgage, okay, on his property, but that rental income coming in is going to help us bridge the gap between when we want to get out of the high stress job, do our side hustle or do our hobby until we get to Social Security or till later in life. And we also have musical gear that's worth about $30,000. Would we have to sell that today? So we've got $690,000 in protected or non-liquid assets. Is that all making sense to you guys? Listen, if you have questions, put it in the comment, hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, make sure you do that today. Really enjoy this and being with you guys. Okay, so here, let's look at expenses. So when we do an EKG, now let me say this too. If you want an EKG, in the description below is a way to get in touch with me. We can go through your financial EKG for you, get you to retirement, get you through retirement, protect your ability to stay in retirement. So what we like to do, or what I like to do when I'm running through a financial EKG for someone, is I want to get an expense plan, and I want to get an advanced expense plan, because I can easily plug in some expenses and it just has a basic, inflation rate. But what I want to do is I want to get an advanced expense plan for clients, because I want to know exactly what you're spending your money on. Not because I care whether you go to Starbucks or Saks Fifth Avenue or whatever. What I want to know is, what are the individual inflation rates on what you're spending your money on? Because then we can dive into those spendings, that money, where that money's going, and we can say, based on this money coming out, this is the inflation rate. Let me show you what I mean by that. So for him, we have a mortgage of $2,250. Well, that mortgage is over in 2040, which is about 17 years from now. Well, after 2040, this $2,250 is going to fall off. So if we don't have an advanced expense plan, and if you're just doing something on Excel, it's going to calculate out your mortgage for the duration of your retirement, which we don't want to do. We also don't want to put inflation on our mortgage, right? The mortgage is a fixed payment. It's going to be $2,250 every month, no matter what. So for him, we know that there's zero inflation on his mortgage, but there's 3% inflation, or 3.27% inflation. That's the 109-year average. The reason I like to use the 109-year average is because that's how long we've been tracking inflation, since 1914. Now, obviously, we've put some 7s on the board, 6.5s on the board recently. Put a lot of crooked numbers on the board, like the Tampa Bay Rays are doing right now in baseball. But over the long-term average, we've been at 3.27%. So what we're able to say is, hey, your average inflation rate is 1.91%. That looks a lot different than if we just chucked in $5,000. What was his expenses? $5,400. So let's just plug in $5,400. Say it's at 3.27%. Now look at this. Here's what I want to show you. This is why it's important for an EKG. This is how detailed you want to be, right? We only get to retire once. Like, we don't want to retire again. So if we're going to do it, let's be detailed. You get into a cockpit of an airplane, you go through those same questions every time you get in the cockpit, because you want to make sure that plane is going to get from point A to point B. And I am sure glad that my pilot, now I don't have a pilot, but when I get on an airplane, I'm really glad that pilot goes through those questions. So this is what we want to be detailed on. His current monthly expenses if we just say, hey, it's 5,400 with 3.27%, his projected monthly expenses at retirement, 7,693. You see that right there? But if we have an advanced expense plan, it's 6,769. So there's a difference. That compound interest is different when it comes to your expenses. Fast Eddie says this mortgage goes up because taxes, insurance. Mine went up $200. You're exactly right. Insurance and taxes is going to go up. That's why we don't put that in mortgage. We put that into baseline expenses. So that's going to go on to not on your mortgage and your principal and interest side of the payment. That's going to go into the baseline expenses. When we're doing an advanced expense plan, there's actually a section for taxes and insurance. So it's mortgage, principal and interest, taxes, and then insurance. Those are all going to be separate factors because you are exactly right. My taxes went up this year. Property insurance in Florida. You want to talk about expensive? Come to Florida and buy some property insurance. It's a little bit out of control. Somebody could talk to our governor about that. That would be great. Kevin says, go Brew Crew, off to a good start. Yeah, Milwaukee is off to a fantastic start. Hey, who do you like in baseball? If you're a baseball fan, put your team in the comments. Would love to talk to you about that. All right, so that's what we're looking at from an expense standpoint. Now, cash flows are where we're really calculating in like future expenses. Or for Dylan, here's what we're going to say. Okay, Dylan, we want to retire at 51 from our crappy, pressure-filled, clocking in, never getting to clock out job, right? Because that's what he said. Drew, I was on a call with my boss at 9 o'clock at night. Now, my boss is super nice, but I was on the clock at 9 o'clock. And so we don't want to do that anymore, right? Life is short. COVID taught us anything, is that life is short. The Bible says that it's a vapor. Our life is a vapor compared to all of history. And so it's not worth killing ourselves over something that is not going to outlive us, right? So for Dylan, here's where we're going to start calculating in some of that money. We've got gigs, which he makes $3,200 a month doing gigs. So he plays weddings, he plays, birthday parties, he plays in hotels, he does all that kind of stuff. And I'm actually going to show you within the scenarios, I'm going to show you a decrease in income and an increase in expenses, just so that we're safe. So we're just trying to do assumptions here. But if these decrease, if his income decreases and his expenses increase, can we still do this? So we're not going to like rainbows and unicorns. We're actually going to kind of put this thing through a meat grinder. We want to see what's going on. So teaching voice, teaching guitar, he can make $450 a month and $400 doing that. So teaching, right? He's got a hobby that he can do. He's got rental income coming in of $2,000, and we're going to set that for life. So he's going to continue to live in the same house, continue to do the rental for the rest of his life. He doesn't plan on moving. But we're going to show the gigs and the teaching voice ending in the year 2033. Now, obviously, he can continue to play music for as long as he wants, and he can keep teaching as long as he wants. He said that from a standpoint of teaching, that's the one thing he doesn't necessarily like to do as much as playing. So these would maybe fall off, and this would continue. I used to work in the Villages. Now, if you don't know anything about the Villages, it's the largest retirement community in the world. And we would go to the square in the Villages where there'd be restaurants, and the band, the people in the band would be 50, 60, 70s, 80-year-olds. So he's able to do this. And what I say by that, he's able to do this as long as he wants. And we're also going to look at a kitchen remodel. He wants to remodel his kitchen. It's a little older house. And so we're plugging in $20,000 for that, which we're going to, when we show a decrease in expenses, an increase in expenses and a decrease in income, we're going to leave that kitchen remodel in there at $20,000 because he really wants that. So we want to show this. We're trying to project out as much as we possibly can. We want to be as close to the dot as we possibly can, but also knowing that if the market does better than we expect, if the market does worse than we expect, if our income's higher, lower, expenses are higher, lower, inflation, whatever, we have a really good plan, right? If we're going to go from here, Tampa, to Chicago, we got to have a plan. We got to have a map. And if a road's blocked, we're driving, we got to know a way to get around. Speaking of Chicago, Chris says, go Cubbies. Let's go Cubbies. Cubbies are good. I got a, well, you can't see it here. I got a Ryan Sandberg picture on my wall. I grew up a Cubs guy. Yankees. Fast Eddie, you always say the Yankees. Come on now. All right, taxes. We're not going to focus on taxes too much in this scenario, but taxes are really important. Keep in mind, guys, Dylan's in New Jersey. New Jersey's got a little bit higher tax rate, 5.27% is the state tax rate there. His projected federal tax rate for 2023 is 12.64%. So no wages. Obviously, we're not working. We're not, no qualified contributions. We're not contributing to a 401k, an IRA, anything like that. He's contributing to a Roth IRA, $500 a month. So that's why you don't see that tax-wise there. Not old enough for Social Security, no pensions, a little bit of 1099 interest for money sitting in the bank. Here's our monthly cash flows and taxable withdrawals. So we've got money coming out plus some taxable withdrawals there, which gets us to the income that we need. Here's our standard deduction. So that means our taxable income is $68,819. We have a progressive tax code. So here's our bases. Federal tax of $10,448. No tax credits. So we got a federal tax of $10,448. His federal tax bracket is 22%, right? That's the bracket his income is in. But since it's progressive, his federal tax rate is 12.64. Okay. Now, what we can easily do in all of this is we can update the brackets if we wanted to show an increase. And I don't want to get into that on these scenarios. Go back through some of the other live streams and videos and we can talk about taxes. It's not the purpose. This video is showing you how you can retire, do your side hustle, all that. But we can increase taxes. You guys know in the year 2026, taxes are going to go up. If just by default, if Congress doesn't do anything, taxes are going to revert back to the Obama era tax code, which is about 25% higher. So you see these brackets here, okay, 10, 12, 22, 24. If we raise them by 25%, you can see where they're going to go, right? 10 is going to go to 12 and a half, 12 to 15, 22 to 27. So taxes are going to go up. We need to be aware of that. It's not necessarily going to affect him. Again, I said this at the beginning, and a lot of you have come on recently. So if you didn't start at the beginning, go back to the beginning. But the key to retiring early, the key to retiring before Social Security is having this large bucket of non-qualified money. You can see these green areas. Most of his money is not qualified, meaning not taxable, not IRA, not 401k, not 403b, which means he can pull it out at any time he wants, right? So what's that? 47, 48 plus 12.9. So 113 plus 420. So let's say 113 plus 420. That's $533,000 that he can pull out at any time he wants without the IRS saying, no, you can't do that. Here's a 10% penalty for doing that, or having to follow the rule of 55 or 72T or something like that. No. It's a freedom fund. He can pull it out whenever he wants. Now, you will pay taxes on insurance, capital gains, things like that, but that's not as bad as dollar for dollar. And you can see I didn't talk about this. We're giving the portfolio a weighted average of 4.8%, which that just means the growth of the portfolio. So taxes we're not overly concerned about because the way we've structured this. And that's why it's so important to structure your investments correctly. It can't just be this blind, like I'm going to throw everything I got into my 401k and just hope for the best. No, we need to structure it, and it needs to be structured correctly. I have so many clients that I work with where we look at, does it make sense to keep contributing to your 401k on the traditional side, or should you do it on the Roth side? A lot of people call me and say, hey, Drew, read an article. I'm going to start putting all my money into Roth. And I'm like, whoa, wait a sec. Let's talk about it for a minute. Does that make sense for you? So for him, for Dylan, right, we're putting $500 a month into his Roth IRA. What if we didn't, instead of putting $500 into the Roth, we put $500 in the traditional, like the regular IRA? Now, oops, let me go to taxes real quick. Now we have a $6,000 qualified contribution. So that's coming off of our income, right? So now his tax rate, his taxes owed are $8,860. 8,000. Slow down, Drew. See how my Kentucky accent? If I start talking too fast, it just garbles up, right? 8,886 versus 10,000 something, right? I think it was 10,600. So does it make sense for him, because we have so much money right here in these green buckets, to maybe put $6,000 a month or a year into his IRA or more. Obviously, he's over the age 50, so he can put in, up to $7,500 now with the catch-up contribution. So does that make sense to do that and to bring his federal tax down? Maybe, but that's not what we're doing right now. So that's something we want to look at. We want to really dissect all these different areas to make sure that we're doing what's right. Okay. So pre-retirement, here's what we look at. So Dylan's 51. Here's our contribution to our Roth IRA. Here's our monthly cash flow. So we've got gigs, teaching voice, teaching guitar, and rental income. So we've got $6,000 of income coming in. Now, this is net monthly income, $4,552. That's after tax. There is our kitchen remodel going out. Here's our net monthly expenses, so $5,499. So we have a deficit on a monthly basis of $947. So that means that we're going to have to pull $947 a month from this fidelity, this non-qualified money. Now, here's why it's really important to structure your buckets of money. If this John Hancock is where he was pulling from at 51, he would pay a 10% penalty, right? Because he's under the age of 59 and a half. So what Dylan has been really diligent on for the last 20 years is growing his non-qualified, his brokerage money, his freedom fund. So now all we have to do is pull a little bit of money each month off of that brokerage account to get us to 59 and a half. And at 59 and a half, that brokerage account's actually at 473,843. It's grown because, we're projecting out a market, or we're projecting out a 4.82% growth rate on his investments. 4.8% is not anything to write home about, right? If I told you you can get 4.8% over the next 10 years, you'd probably ho-hum it. You'd be like, well, that's fine. The market's average. What's the market's average? 13% the last 10 years. With inflation, it's about 8% over the last 50 years. But he doesn't need to take too much risk on his money because he only needs a small distribution rate to make this work. Now, what I'm going to show you in just a second is an increase in expenses, a decrease in income, where we're going to have to take more out of our investments. But why, when the rubber meets the road, right, when it really gets bad, how he has structured this still allows him to do what he wants to do. Okay. Now we go to pre-retirement, or we go to retirement. Basically, he's got crazy amount of money at 99 and 100. It probably will not be like that because a lot of things are going to happen in life that you're going to need money for. But what this shows me is Dylan can retire. Here's 62. Here's our monthly cash flow. There's our rental income still coming in. We're kicking on Social Security at 67. Obviously, we can, if we get to this point, like we got $1.4 million at 67, we might say, hey, Dylan, you're single guy. Why don't we take Social Security at 70 instead, right? To push that up because we have the assets to do it. Or we might not. We might take Social Security earlier, depending on where the market's at. Remember, we talked about that. We look at where is the market at. So let me show you how we do that. We go to income here. Let's say Dylan says, you know what, Drew, I want to take my Social Security at 62 because I don't want to pull money from my assets. Well, that's fine. So now you can see, boom, there's 62, 2034. It's 70% less, but he's taking it at 62 and he still never runs out of money. So it's still a really good scenario. We can go, okay, Dylan, what about taking it at 70? Boom, 70. Go to retirement. Now we're taking it at 70. We're getting 124% of our full retirement benefit. And I realize, guys, listen, in the year 2033, 2034, somewhere around there, Social Security is supposed to only be able to pay out 77% of its benefits, right? Of promised benefits. That is based on nonpartisan budgeting right now. So something's going to have to change between now and the next 10 years, right? To shore up 100% of Social Security benefits. So one of the things that we've looked at for clients is think about your full retirement benefit actually being your 62 benefit. So instead of you would still take it at 67, but it would only be it would be what you would get at 62, right? 70%, which it's going to be 77, but I'm just trying to use round numbers to help. Let's say it's there. So that way we're not, again, if the plan works and we're not surprised, like I don't think they're going to not fix Social Security. I think they're going to fix it. It would be a political meltdown if they didn't. But it gives us a really good idea. Hey, what's this going to look like in the future if Social Security is not fixed? Fast Eddie says, what about RMDs? Not too concerned about RMDs, Fast Eddie. I mean, obviously at 75, he'll have to start taking RMDs based on Secure Act 2.0. If you're younger, or I mean, if you're older, you got to start taking RMDs at 73. He's going to have to take RMDs. He actually has a positive net cash flow based on Social Security, rental income, his expenses, things like that. Yeah, taxes are on that. But again, it's not something that we're overly concerned about at this point. Listen, I wish I could wave a magic wand. Great question, by the way, Fast Eddie. I wish I could wave a magic wand and make everybody's plan perfect, meaning we take Social Security at the right age, we structure our investments the right way, we save the right way. Our tax scenario means we're going to pay zero in taxes, like we've done everything perfect, but that's not the case. What we try to do is say, where are we at today? What are our main concerns? What are our main goals? What's our family look like? What are we trying to accomplish? And then we say, okay, can I retire? How long is my money going to last? So those are the main questions first. When can I retire and how long is my money going to last? Once we satisfy the answers to those two questions, then we go, okay, what about taxes? Like, can we bring our tax bracket down? What can we do there? Roth conversions, RMDs, how are our investments structured? What's our bucket of, like, are we in a bucket strategy? Are we in a total portfolio strategy for retirement income? So there's a lot of things that kind of, orbit the can I retire question, right? But we can't always satisfy every answer. We just have to try to say, okay, Dylan, you can retire at 51 from your crappy job and work to your exciting job of playing music, and your money's going to last forever. Now, as we do our quarterly reviews, as we go through your plan, here's some things we need to update to make adjustments on. So it's not always, we try to do the best we can, but it's one of those things where we just try to again, if we did everything if a client, it doesn't always work to fit everybody. We just really, I want to say, can you retire? Is your money going to last forever? Boom, we can do that. Okay, let's worry about some of the other stuff now, later. And Fast Eddie, I hope that answered your question for RMD. I kind of went on a tangent there a little bit. Now, markets. We got to look at markets. This is really, really important. So we've got $877,000 right now. And what I love about the software, the EKG that we're able to do here, is I love that we're able to run kind of like Monte Carlo analyses, but we're able to run these Monte Carlo analyses individually. So if you ever run a Monte Carlo analysis, you know that it's basically like it gives you 1,000 different scenarios all at once. And you see this like screen, and it's got like all these lines, and like there's somebody standing there and saying, hey, Dylan, you've got a 60% chance of running out of money here, and you've got an 80% chance of running out of money here, and you got a 20% probability of, it's like, oh, well, that's great. Like, okay, I got all these fancy lines and probabilities. What I try to do, and which is fine. I mean, I like the Monte Carlos, and we use them in our practice, but I like to get down into the individual Monte Carlos and say, okay, let's just look at those 1,000 different scenarios. Now, obviously we can't go through 1,000, but let's kind of break those out. So what we're able to do here is we're able to say, okay, software, give us randomized rates of return. And is our money going to last? Is the scenario going to work with a randomized set of market returns? So in this scenario, we're going to show negative numbers up front. So we're going to have some really crappy years up front, which is sequence of return risk. Sequence of return risk is simply that when you step into retirement, you're hit in the face like Mike Tyson, right? What's the Mike Tyson quote? Everybody's a fighter until you get hit in the face. Everybody's retired till you get smacked in the face with some market losses. And so we want to Mike Tyson ourselves up front And then again, we're just randomizing these rates of return. And what I like is we can actually set some ranges on this. So we can say the minimum we're going to lose is 20, the maximum we're gain is 20. We can set our geometric return. We can set our negatives first, or we can set no negatives at first. We can just do randomized negatives, and then we can generate this. So let's look at this one first. -8, -6, -5, -5. What does that do to Dylan? Well, we're still at a positive cash flow. It's at 80. We've got 2.5 versus 2.9. That actually looks better than our scenario. Go back to generate. 7, 9, and 1. Let's see if we can get a real bad one. And you see how we can just keep generating. Okay, look, 9, 10, 10. That looks pretty tough. At 80, 3.1, and 2.5. Now, the reason the scenario is actually, our scenario looks worse is because we ran at such a low rate of return. And Dylan really wanted us to be conservative when we were running this, because he's stepping into something that's, it's scary to do what he's doing. It's brave. He has a lot of courage, but it's scary. And so we ran our rates of return really conservative. And so even when we're hitting it with some Mike Tyson situations, let's see, at 80. Yeah, here's one, 2.3 at 80 versus 2.5. And so that one actually is a little worse, but he still never runs out of money. Now let's go to historical rates. Let's go, what if he retired? We'll say 1968 first. That's the inflation, great inflation area that we're having right now. I guess if you look back through history, 1968, 1982, that's kind of the decade or 14 years. You can say, hey, this is what inflation looked like then. Kind of pick that up, put that on us right now. And in his case, at 80, we've got 1.5 million versus 2.3. So still, versus 2.5. So about a $974,000 difference. Still at 80 with 1.5 million, just doing pretty good, right? We're still in a pretty good place there. Let's go to 2000. Let's look at that real quick. 2000 at 80, we're about a 1.3% difference. We got $1.2 million at 80. Again, we never run out of money. So, it's a really good, again, we've run this really conservative. Dylan has done all the heavy lifting. Dylan is the one that saved the money in the brokerage account to get him to where he needs to be. Now, let me show you a scenario. And I talked to you about how we run this through a meat grinder. So the first thing we've done is we've run a very low rate of return. The second thing we're doing is now we're going to run a 20% increase and a 20% decrease. So we're going to do a 20% increase in expenses and a 20% decrease in income. So from an expense standpoint, we're going to jack his expenses up 20% from where they were. Okay. So I would say 20% increase in expenses projection wise. Now, Dylan has a really good budget. So we knew exactly what he was spending his money on. So we jumped everything up by 20%. Now his mortgage stayed the same, but all his variable expenses we raised by 20%. I would say that's super conservative. Like, I don't think your expenses are going to jump 30, 40, 50% because of inflation. So I think running expenses at a 20% increase to be safe, to just say, hey, what happens if we're actually spend 20% more or prices go up by 20%? I would say that's pretty conservative. Like, we're being like overly conservative. That's not going to happen type thing. Agree or disagree? Put that in the comments. So we're going to run our expenses at a 20% increase. What we're going to do too is we're going to bring his income that we're projecting out. We're going to bring that down by 20%. So this is more common, right? Like, expenses going up by 20% for someone who has has QuickBooks and has a super good budget, probably not going to happen. It does happen for people who don't have a budget, but cash flows going down, that's probably more common, meaning he might not make as much playing music. He might not get as much teaching, and his rental income might go down. So what do you need to look at that? Plus our kitchen remodel. Matthew says this: accept the cost of health insurance. Yeah, health insurance, it's not so much the Affordable Health Care Act. It's the, I don't want to say unaffordable, but it's expensive. And we actually have priced that in, Matthew, into his expense plan. We priced in paying for health insurance. And again, I don't know how many times I've said this, but I'll say it again. I heard an old dad, There we go. I think I unplugged my mic on accident. Let me check. Hold on. Audio. Check. Yep, I'm in. Okay. I heard an old Baptist preacher once tell me, hey, you tell them something once, tell them something again, and you tell them again. You tell them till they get it. So think about this. The reason, now Dylan didn't know this when he started this, but Matthew asked the question about health insurance, okay? He's got $394,000 in this Fidelity brokerage account. Okay, this is a non-qualified brokerage account, meaning you're only going to pay taxes on dividends, interest, capital gains, and you write off capital losses. So if you pick a crappy stock, you can write off up to $3,000 a year unless you have offsetting gains with those losses. Okay, so if you have gains of $10,000 and losses of $10,000, boom, it washes out. Okay. So from a healthcare standpoint, Matthew, I'm going to leave your comment up there for a second. When we get to pre-retirement here, so this is pre-retirement. So he's 51. His bucket of money that we're pulling from is this right here, this 387,872. What we're going to be able to do, we also have some bank account money here, okay, at 94,000. You pull money out of the bank, there's no taxes on that. So we're going to be able to structure his income coming to him, right? Because he's going to be self-employed at this point, which means he's going to have a lot more expenses and write-offs, right? He's going to be able to write things off, which he wasn't able to do as a W-2 employee. And what we're going to use for income to make up that we don't make in teaching voice, teaching guitar, or gigs, we're going to pull from either this non-qualified bucket or we're going to pull it from this bank account. So we're going to be able to hopefully, Matthew, keep him below the ACA income level so that he can get a subsidy for his health insurance. So that's one of the things that we're able to do. And he's able to do that. Again, I always say the key to retiring early is having, to me, I think the key is to having a large chunk of freedom money that you can get to at any time you want, a taxable brokerage account. Freedom. It's the freedom to retire and to get health insurance and to be able to navigate that. Because think about it this way. If this Fidelity money was like another IRA, if he had his 401k and we have an IRA and we're having to use a 72T, when that money comes out of the 72T, it's taxable. So it's hard for us to navigate that from a health insurance standpoint. Matthew says, I hear you. I'm not preaching at you, man. I'm just saying that in general. You know, how we do that. First Shot says this, I plan to do a lot of expensive travel when I retire. First Shot, where are you going first? Where are you guys going to go first? Leave it in the comment section. Where are you going to travel to? I was talking to a friend of mine named Herb up in North Carolina. He joined a Facebook group recently, and they go see all the Major League Baseball parks. That's their goal. And there's some people who even go to minor league ballparks, which is kind of interesting. Now, living here in Florida, it's kind of cool. We got 2 major league ballparks. We got a ton of minor league ballparks because the high A ball is here. High A, is it high A or low A? I don't know. I think it's low A is actually here. Low A minor leagues is here. So we've got a ton of minor league ballparks here in Florida, which is cool. But where you got to go? Matthew's going to Australia. Anybody else going? I got clients in Australia right now, Matthew. They are down under. She retired from Disney after 30 years. And she went to Australia with her husband. They're enjoying themselves over there right now. All right, so here we go. Dylan's got 20% increase in expenses. He's got a 20% decrease in his income. Can we still retire? Yeah, we can. But here's what I want to show you. Look at 100. He's got $900,000 left, right? So, like, that means we got some pretty good fluff there, right? We got some fluff if something else comes up. We want to do that traveling. We need that extra. So if you can look at this, we want to show this kind of side by side. Here's our scenarios. Current scenario means the no increase, no decrease. And this is stupid money. $5 million at 100, it ain't going to be there. This is just compound interest doing its thing. This is the scenario that we really want to focus on. If we retire at 51, if we have a 20% increase in our spending and a 20% decrease in the money that we think we're going to get from income, we're going to be out at 100, which makes me feel really good. Now, what we've got to do is we've got to go into this scenario. We've got to go over to markets, and we got to ask ourselves, okay, if we have some secrets of return risk, what's going to happen? Are we ever going to run out of money? Well, in this case, doing some Monte Carlos, we're at 1.2 there. We're not too bad. We go to another Monte Carlo here. We're still not running out of money. I want to see if I can run this beast out real quick. That one might do it. Let's see. Nope, still not doing it. Wow. Dylan, you've done an amazing job. Nope. We're a little less. $85,000 left than where we were. We were at 940. Now we're at 85. Let's go to historical rates of return. Dylan, I'm really trying to run you out of money if you're watching. I do not think it's going to work. 2000. There we go. I ran you out. So that's at 93. Now that's spendable assets. We still have our house, right? $660,000 house, and rental income and Social Security. So you could do a reverse mortgage, sell the house. So he's put himself into a really good place. Like, we got to have the worst decade, like the year 2000 to 2010. Like, we got to have the worst decade since the Great Depression to run this guy out of money with the projections that we're at. So, I mean, that's what's awesome about this. Like, he has put himself in a place where he can say his boss, like, listen, you're a nice guy, but like, I don't want to be working at 9 o'clock at night on a project. Like, I want to go play guitar or the drums. I want to sing. I want to teach voice, teach the guitar. And I want to enjoy my life because I'm 51 years old. Mortality tables got us at 84 and 90. I think it's going to be a lot longer. But that's why it's so important for you to have, I think I saw a statistic today that 77 or 78% of people don't have a written financial plan. And that's what we do with the financial EKG. Like, in the comment or in the description below, if you want an EKG, let's put it together. It doesn't matter how old you are. I work with clients who are in their late 20s all the way up to their 90s. We need a written in financial plan. And I'm not trying to say there's a lot of people out there say, oh, you need a written financial plan. Then they try to sell you an annuity or a mutual fund. No. We need a plan. Like, you got to have the plan first. Once the plan's in place, everything else comes from the plan. You know, people will call me and they'll say, hey, do you think I can retire? And I'll go, well, let's put the plan together. Well, what do you think I should do about taxes? And I'll say, well, we got to put the plan together. Well, what about my 401k and my investments? I'll say, we got to put the plan together. I was having a conversation with someone at 10 o'clock this morning, a current client. We have a plan. And he was asking some questions about his 401k, his investment approach. And I said, well, hey, let's look at the plan. What rate of return do we need to get for you to never run out of money? And that's how we have to structure our investments. I call it the guardrail rule. The guardrail rule is simply this. If you need 4% off of your money with inflation to never run out, why are we taking risk of 8, 9, 10% within our investments? Stay within your guardrails. Because if you go too fast, you could go over the guardrail. If you go too slow, you won't get where you need to on time. So if we only need 4% with inflation, we don't need to structure our investments like 8, 9, and 10. So when we're structuring investments for clients, we manage assets for clients. I'll say, hey, let's structure your investment portfolio for your distribution rate. And if it's 4%, we're trying to hit singles and doubles. Every now and then, I'm going to run into one and hit a home run. I was not a home run hitter when I played baseball. I was not. I know that I look strong and burly and I could chop wood and burn stuff. That's probably what you guys think, right? But I was more of a gaps guy. Like, when I hit balls in the gap. I never really hit them with height. But every now and then I would run into one on accident and it would go over the fence. But it's singles and doubles is what got me on base, kept me in the lineup, kept me playing on a day-to-day basis. And so that's what we want within our portfolios. If we swing for the fence, like, I'm 37. Yes, my investments, I'm trying to swing for the fence. But as I transition more towards 40, 45, 50, my investments are going to structure for that. And so I don't allow myself a lot of those swings and misses anymore. I just want to be consistent, because compound interest is God's greatest gift outside of Jesus. And compound interest is just consistently getting on base. I know you guys probably don't watch the Tampa Bay Rays very often, but I do every night, as long as they're playing. And there's a guy on the Rays. His name is Yandy Diaz. He's our leadoff hitter. And Yandy Diaz, it looks like King Kong. The guy is jacked, but he doesn't hit a lot of home runs. His greatest attribute is that he gets on base a lot, which means he's consistent, right? Have you ever seen Moneyball with Brad Pitt? He gets on base. Tell him about it. He gets on base. And it's the same with your investments. Get on base. Get on base. Just get on base. And that's what Dylan's been able to do. Dylan was just getting on base. And because Dylan was getting on base consistently, if we run his investments, a 20% increase in expenses, a 20% decrease in spendable income, and we throw it into the worst decade that we've had in 100 years outside of the Great Depression, he's out of money at 93, but he still has about a $900,000 house that we can reverse mortgage, sell, do something with. It's really Fast Eddie says, clap for Dylan. It's true. Awesome. 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 All right. I got about 7 minutes. 7. And then I'm going to go eat some lunch. If you guys have questions, comments, leave those in the chat. Again, if I could give you guys a key to retiring early, if I could give you the keys to retiring or the keys to the kingdom, okay? Keys to the kingdom are this. If you want to retire early, or if you want to retire at 60, if you want to keep your taxes low in retirement, one of the best ways for you to do that is to build up a brokerage account. Think about your 401k, your IRA. If you're making contributions to your 401k, I want you to continue to do that, especially if you're getting a match from your employer, right? If you're getting a 4% match, make sure you're putting in that 4%. Rule of thumb says you want to save 15 to 20% of your gross income for retirement. You make $100,000, you want to save $15,000 to $20,000. It doesn't say you got to put 15 to 20% into your 401k. That's great. And yeah, if you're making $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, putting money into your 401k will give you a tax deduction. That's great. But what if you're not? What if you're making 150 or less? Put the money into your 401k, but think about, obviously talk to your CPA, talk to me, talk to your financial advisor. But what about putting money into your brokerage account, building that account up, building an account of money that you can use anytime you want? You want to pull it out? Oh, there's no rule of 55. There's no 72T. There's no RMDs. Oh, I can use this for whatever I want. You still have your 401k that you're putting in your 4%, getting your contribution, getting your match. That's great. But if you build those together now, and a lot of people don't think about this now, it's one bucket of money, right? It's the same. It's like my money in my IRA is my money in my brokerage account. It's my money. It's all planning for my retirement. The thing about your IRA money, the thing about your 401k money, the thing about your 403B, your 457, your TSP, if you got let's say you got $1 million in your 401k, and it ain't yours, that ain't your money. 80% of that might be your money, but 20% of that money going to Uncle Sam, right? Like if you got money in a 401k pre-tax or an IRA, that ain't all your money. It's going to Uncle Sam. Some of it, and maybe more of it in the future, because taxes are going to have to go up. Social Security, Medicare, they going broke, right? $31 trillion in debt. Like we need some money. And so you got to start thinking in your mind. This is what I tell my clients. This is what we do. We need to structure ourselves today so that 65-year-old Drew will look back at 37-year-old Drew and say, thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing. We've got to start structuring it today, right? So that our tax bill, we can't alleviate all taxes. We can do the best as we can. And I don't know what politicians are going to do in the future. I don't want to get in the head of any politicians. Even those people are, I'm not saying they're crazy. Some of them are. Some of them are crazy. But I don't know. I know the taxes are going to go up. So if we have the ability to save for retirement in multiple different buckets, and one bucket is more tax efficient, is more freedom, is more what is easier to get to. It's better. Why not use that to our benefit? You know, people go like, I'm maxing out my 401k. Good for you. That's great. I want you to max out your 401k if you want to do that. If it's giving you the tax write-off that you need, do that. But what if you can get your 4 or 5% match and then take the other whatever percentage, 15% you're putting in your 401k, put in your brokerage account. You're not getting a match on that money. You're not getting any. Yeah, you'll pay taxes on dividends, interest, and capital gains. And people are always like, well, I don't have to do that in my 401k IRA. That's not a huge percentage when you get down the road. I'm telling you, the key to the kingdom, the key to retirement is having money that Uncle Sam, the IRS, cannot touch or can't touch as much as they want, because they see your IRAs, they see your 401ks, they see the money that's going to go to your beneficiaries, to your kids, to your nieces, to your nephews. They see that. Why do you think the IRA stretch is gone? You can't do a stretch anymore. It's 10 years. Pull that money out. Pay those taxes right now. The government wants that money. And if you're able to leave it, let's say you have a brokerage account, 2 accounts, you got $100,000. You got an IRA at 100 grand and you got a brokerage account at 100 grand. You die, that $100,000 to your kids, let's say there's no spouse now, got to be drained in 10 years. And if your kid's 37, 45 at the top of their tax peak, you know, they're working, they're at the peak of their career, they're going to pay a ton of taxes on that money. You got $100,000 in a brokerage account. It gets inherited by your kids. They get a step up in basis on taxes, meaning if you bought the stock here, now you die, the stock goes to there. You got to step up in basis on the day of your death. That money goes to your kids. They don't have to sell it right away. They can hold it and do whatever they want with it. They can pay for their kids' college. They can go on a trip. They can pay down debt. They can do whatever they want, and there's no repercussions from the IRS. They'll pay tax on capital gains and interest. So what? It's not ordinary income, and it's not being forced to take out. All right, I got 2 minutes. I just preached for 5 minutes. Can I get an amen? Can I get a hallelujah from the back row? It was just Easter weekend, right? So can we get an amen, right? So that's why the key to your retirement, man, I stress this to my clients over and over and over again. Build up money that the IRS can't get or is taxed more efficiently. I'm actually working on a video right now. Okay, it's going to come out probably in a month or so. And you can see this. Retire at 60 with $500,000. I'm working on, I have a client right now. And the reason we're doing this, I'm doing this scenario for YouTube, is because we're going to talk about taking Social Security early. I want to talk about why you should take Social Security at 62 in this case. Now, obviously, every case is different, but in his case, or in their case, because they're married, they're going to take Social Security at 62 because it's more tax advantageous for them. Again, it all comes back to the tax man. All right. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. I love live streams. Check us out every other week, 11 o'clock. We're here. I will miss a live stream in a couple weeks because I am going on vacation. But we'll be back after that. But again, thank you so much. Hit the like button, subscribe. You guys are awesome. Keep coming back. God bless.